Day Dakota.
It's 5:40. Welcome back. TV news is a unique thing. When you turn this channel on in the morning or at night, you allow us into your home, trusting us to tell you what you need to hear. Now, you might say I'm biased, but I believe there's no one in North Dakota more trusted in that regard than Jim Olson. He's been a fixture of local news for almost 33 years, but tomorrow he'll sign off on KX News for the last time. So this week, Someone You Should Know is dedicated to the man who dedicated himself to us for so long.
Let's talk about Vic Patterson. How does that sound? Minot State University star football player Vic Patterson.
In the mid-1980s, a new voice arrived on the airwaves of North Dakota. A voice that by now has become unmistakable.
Jim Olson, KX News. Jim Olson, KX News. Jim Olson, KX News.
Jim was hired by the Wrighton family in 1986. Back then, he got to flex his sports muscle a little bit.
Royals runners are on second and third with 2 out.
Including doing play-by-play for major tournaments on the KX network.
Take it away by Manson. He puts it up and scores. And the buzzer sounds. Minot with a 13-point lead after 16 minutes.
It wasn't long before his gifts as a broadcaster were put to use in the news department.
Well, Jim Olson has been out at the All Seasons Arena all day today, where it's day 2.
Has it only been a day?
West Coast Fest.
It's only been a day. Okay,
That's
it seems
all
like
I
it's been
think.
about a week today. I don't know, maybe it's just me, I guess. I have Don Karski here, who I believe...
Jim was named news director at KXMC in the mid-90s.
Good evening. Once again, Governor Ed Schaefer has been reelected in North Dakota, according to...
And in the 2 decades that followed, he took us into farmers' fields, to the White House, even into his kitchen.
I have an idea. Let's check the junk drawer and see what we can find.
He also put himself on the front line of some of the biggest events our region has ever seen.
It was about 1:40 when a peaceful night turned to chaos. Several cars of a Canadian Pacific Railways train jumped the tracks, including an anhydrous ammonia tanker that ruptured, sending a deadly cloud adrift right over Minot.
But his biggest assignment of all came in the late spring of 2011.
I'm standing here at the Rafferty Dam, where more water is coming out now than has ever been released from this dam.
Days before the Mouse River would roar out of its banks in Minot, Jim went live on KX to warn the community.
We're talking about a long-term, slow-motion disaster that is hitting this city. But
That live broadcast became a marathon of coverage. 171 hours of uninterrupted reporting on a story that would permanently change the Magic City.
It's the kind of thing that hasn't happened in Minot since 1969.
In the months and years after the fact, we've heard Minot residents say the nonstop broadcast became a source of comfort during the disaster.
Everything is not spinning out of control. You're doing just fine. Just come together and help each other out.
Comfort even as Jim's own home was being flooded.
We're about to go on a bit of a tour of my house here. I'm in my neighborhood, which is in Green Valley. The water was right about up to here.
Perhaps that will be Jim Olson's great legacy at KX. He knew that his story and the community's story were one and the same, so he used his voice to tell those stories, big and small, with curiosity, dignity, and wit. Jim Olson, the voice of Western North Dakota, is someone you should know.
Jim Olson, KX News.
Now, this segment is called Someone You Should Know, but in this case, I think it's someone we all already know, because for years and years, people like you have welcomed Jim into your home. Of course, I'm lucky to call him Dad, and when I was younger, I would love it when people would come up and say hi to him in a restaurant or at the mall. I would hear those people, most of them strangers, talking to him like he was an old friend or a family member. That doesn't happen with just any news broadcaster, so I think we're all pretty lucky to have gotten to know Jim over the last 33 years.
Wow.
Quite a
You
career.
did such a good job with that story.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
We all had a hard time getting through it without getting teary-eyed.
We
It's,
adore
yeah.
Jim.
He's the
course we
reason
do.
we're all here right now.
Yeah,
He's the
exactly.
reason-
He's the reason we are
Biologically,
here.
the reason why you're here. And he hired both me and Alicia.
Yeah.
And so I'll
An incredible mentor.
I knew who Jim was before I moved to North Dakota.
Yeah.
I watched the flood coverage, and I knew that when I moved here, I wanted to work for KX. I didn't apply anywhere else. When I got the phone call, I'll never forget that day.
And I'll never forget the flood. I mean, just what an act of service it was. I've seen people say, that broadcast is the reason that they saved all their stuff. Because
know what was happening.
we got out ahead of the flood, and that was such a huge thing that I think it's just
Got so
no
many
words for it.
people
It's
through.
incredible.
It is.
I'm certainly grateful for
Yes,
it.
as are we. Very much so.
All right, Amber, how's the forecast?
How do you transition from that? How about we just walk over here, right? So we'll walk over here. We'll talk about this weather forecast here, because there's no good way to transition from that. I just have to wipe my tears away and continue to work here. Now I want to give you the